Good morning, everybody. I'm super excited to be back to talk a little bit more about the emotional awareness in business. We had some great feedback from the initial overview, and everyone had some great insight for us off of the first video. So we're here to talk a little bit more in depth on a couple of topics, and hopefully the videos will continue and bring some value into day-to-day business for you. One of the items that we did see as feedback from the first video was that this isn't necessarily super comfortable for everyone to talk about out on social media. So if you are new to this topic or have some questions, feel free to send us a private message. My team and I we're more than happy to have this conversation over the phone or privately until you're a little bit more comfortable. But this is such a broad topic that not a lot of people are comfortable about. We chose to take this specific line of training out where it's an open platform and hopefully do our due diligence to just broaden people's awareness and get people talking about it. So like I said, you can find us on all of our platforms, and we'll talk about that a little bit more at the end. But if it's not something that you're comfortable opening up on discussion in the social media networks, feel free to shoot us a message and we'll set up some time to chat with you. So we're going to jump right in to cover the topics and keep these videos where you can actually absorb them. So making a conscious decision to be more emotionally aware in your decision will cause a culture shift in your business. Whether you are at this on your own and you are a new entrepreneur, or your business does not call for more than one person and this is just something that you are choosing to be more aware of, both in your professional and personal lives, or you have a team that you know that there's something lacking, and now that you're kind of watching these trainings, it's something that you know needs work in your leadership teams and filtering down, it is going to cause an entire culture shift. And we all have experience in the fact that when you shift a culture of an organization, results change, things change. And when you make a conscious effort, our hope is that it's a positive change. This is one that, in my experience, when you bring awareness to our own personal, how we conduct business, 9 times out of 10, that's a positive change. So, my first thought on this is that when we are, the last video we talked about 3 different things. We talked about emotional awareness in sales, leadership, and our personal relationships, and how those are kind of the 3 large topics, depending on where you're at in your professional life, that being emotionally aware will drastically affect. So professionally, being emotional is, in my experience, probably the #1 job qualification. Where are you at emotionally, prepared to take on whatever role it is? And that has a ton of different facets, and it's not a question that we can outwardly ask. If you sit down in a job interview and you ask someone, well, how emotional are you today? First of all, that's not the right question. And second of all, it's probably not something that we're going to get an honest answer on. So we have to, as someone who is in a role of hiring, be prepared to ask questions about the role itself and uncover how they're actually prepared to address certain situations. In a sales role, that could be anything about how they would face adversity, how often they've faced adversity, how they get through adversity, and what types of words and follow through that you're actually hearing from them when that's happening. In a leadership role, same thing. When they actually have had to disconnect from an employee, what does that look like? What steps did they take up until that point? And same thing. Where are they at? What do they do to maintain their levelness prior to coming to work? I was in a role at one point where they had done a pre-screening on me, and one of the things that they had asked about was what I do to maintain my mental clarity. Great question. It was the first time I'd ever been asked that, and I personally was a long distance runner at the time. It opened up a whole level of conversation, and through the coaching that I had while I worked for that company, if things were not going well, or if I needed some additional time that, kind of clear my head or, whatnot, one of the first questions that my boss at the time asked was, how much running time are you getting? And it's amazing that correlation that we find. And while he wasn't great at coaching the entire person, he was super aware that there was an outside piece that I had to be able to address because I was being asked to perform at a much higher level. So those are all great tactics. There are also things that we probably know about our significant other. There are probably things we know about our children. If grades start to slip with our kids, when they're little, we can probably correlate that to their sleep, or, maybe to a fight that they've had, with us, or, maybe bedtime didn't go so smooth. When they're teenagers, it's something that we have to kind of pick through. Maybe we're watching their social media. It's the exact same thing when we get into a leadership position. So let's talk about being the employee for a second, because I know that not everybody we're talking to is in a leadership role, but even for those of us who are not the owner, we may have employees, but we are also an employee. So being emotional, one of the keys to being emotional is to be present. And being present, there's all kinds of books about it. There's all kinds of resources. There's all kinds of tricks. Everybody has their own. There's not one magic key to it. But you have to be available. And you have to be available both to the place that you're in and to the people that you are with. And so whether you are an employer or you are an employee, you still have to be there. You can't be distracted by all of the other things that are going on. And that can be super hard, especially when you're in a pressure cooker situation. What is it that makes you able to be available in the moment? This is probably one of the higher, from a volume perspective, one of the larger things that we coach on here. What can we do to remain available in all of the moments? Now, I will tell you that I am one of the first ones to say, unless this is a light your hair on fire moment, I am not available to you right this second. And that's hard. That's hard to say. But if someone says to you, it's urgent, then I have the ability to make myself available 9 times out of 10. But you have to be available. And so if you are an employee, then you have to ask yourself, do I put myself in a situation every day when I go to work that someone is available to me? Because if the answer is no, then it doesn't matter how available you are to do your job. You are most likely going to set yourself up for less than 100% of success. You can give all the effort, it will most likely never be good enough. If you are the employer, it's even more important for you to ask yourself, am I available to all of the things that are being asked of me? It's like saying, here, I'm going to be great at 10 things. No one is great at 10 things. We don't have the ability to be great at 10 things. We might have the ability to be great at 2 or 3 things, but to be great at 10 things, it just isn't. We don't have the mental capacity to be great at 10 things. So as an employer, as a boss, can we say, I am available to the people who work for me? And this isn't a report in to, your boss or anything else. This is literally a gut check. Can I say that when someone knocks on my door, when Bob or Susan or whoever it is knocks on my door and says, Kat, I need to talk, I have a problem, I can say, I am available. Now, one of the bigger pitfalls I see is bosses say, well, yeah, on Wednesdays from 10 to 11, I'm available to you. No team is only needing you for 1 hour once a week. It doesn't work like that. So you personally, as the employer, the boss, the leader, whatever your role is, have to decide that if I am going to be accountable to my role, I am available in my role to my employees. This is all emotional. You still have plenty of tasks. There is plenty of paperwork. There are plenty of goals. There are plenty of all of the tactical pieces that it takes for all of us to be in business every day. But you have to be able to emotionally be available to your staff. And in turn, the reality is in some cases you have to then turn around and be the employee to someone else and then change your role. Are you emotionally available to do your job? It's a huge weight. When we start putting it like this, it can start to be a really big weight on our shoulders. And that's why I say this is a shift. This is a shift in culture for our employees to say, wow, I'm carrying this portion of the business on my shoulders. And it will change the perspective of what people are willing to do for you. Why they come to work every day. Why they say they represent your company. Why they say they're willing to do the work they do every day. And yes, we pay them, absolutely, as we should. But why they say they come to work. Why they say they do what they do. Because you are available to them, they are available to you, and they are willing to do what is asked of them at a level that no one has probably ever asked them to do before. They've asked them to come in, here's the job description, good to go, yep, check, move on. However, when we ask them to show up at an entirely different level, and we say, not only are we asking this of you, but we are going to also perform and walk with you, that's a pretty big responsibility. You are soliciting a different type of employee. You are interviewing and hiring a different type of caliber, and you will see a different type of result. Now, not right out of the gate maybe, but when someone starts to struggle, you'll identify it faster. When you start to see trends that you don't like, you will identify them faster. You will see responses from not only employees, but customers that are a different level. It is a presence that is required of an entire organization.